Hello friends, we'll be discussing the concept of central problem of an economy here. Now, what do you mean by central problem of economy? What exactly are the causes of it and what is the solution to that is what we are understanding right now. Let's start with the reading pattern of it. The problem of scarcity of resources which arises before an individual consumer also arises collectively before an economy. On account of this, the problem of economy has to choose between the following. There is a problem of scarcity of resources. That problem which we are already aware about. There are very less resources that can be utilized and there are a lot of consumers here. So what exactly we need to do is what has been suggested here. Which goods should be produced and in how much quantity? That's the first thing. What technique should be adopted for production? That's the second thing. From whom goods should be produced? That's the third thing. These three problems are known as the central problem of or the basic problem of an economy. These three problems, what you have understood right now, what goods should be produced, whom should it be produced, and for whom it should be produced here. All these things, or rather all these three problems that has been mentioned are the three basic problems or rather three central problems of an economy. This is so because all other economic problems cluster around these problems itself. Considering that all the other problems cluster around or move around all these three problems itself, hence these three problems are sorted out as the three central problems or the basic problems of an economy. Now, the first question, what to produce? There are two aspects of this central problem. Firstly, which goods should be produced, and secondly, what should be the quantities of the goods that are supposed to be produced. What is supposed to be produced? क्या produce करना है? And apart from that, how much is supposed to be produced? How much is supposed, or rather, what is the quantity? कितना produce करना है and क्या produce करना है are the things that you need to understand here. The first problem relates to the goods which are supposed to be produced. Now, what is supposed to be produced or rather क्या produce करना है, that depends on the locality, that depends on the country that you are living into. If you are into an Indian country or rather if you are living in India, you need to know about the climate that you are dealing with. What all things can be produced, what is the demand of that product that is being produced outside, whether it is highly in demand, whether it is low in demand. If it is low in demand, it makes no sense of producing that thing. If it is low in demand in the current country itself, it makes no sense. But if that product is high in demand in the other country as well as in your country, absolutely go ahead and produce it. Quantity, it depends on how much demand it is. In other words, what goods should be produced, and economy or rather economy wants many things, but all these cannot be produced with available resources. Therefore, an economy has to choose what goods should be produced and what goods should not be. We remember that we figure out we need all of these things to be produced, but we cannot do that. The reason being, not everything can be produced by a country. So whatever is necessary, whatever is important will be taken into consideration or will be prioritized first. The priority has to be made between consumer and producer of goods, or general or capital goods, or civil goods and defense goods. Now, consumer and producer has to look forward as to what goods should be produced. Defense and any other aspect related to it has to make sure what are the things that are prioritized first. So priority list needs to be set out like that. The second problem is what should be the quantity of the goods for the produce or that are supposed to be produced. Production of goods depends upon the usage of resources, hence the problem is the problem of allocation of resources. Now, what is the quantity that is required? That depends on the resources that are being used in production of that goods. If the resources that are being used are used at a high level, and if those resources are very scarce or the resource or the scarcity is very more in that specific part, then we need to figure out how much we need to produce it there. Is it really required? So the problem completely depends on how much resource is available, and based on that thing we can figure out how much quantity we can produce there. Now, the next question refers to how to produce. Second central problem faced by economy is the which technique should be used to produce or rather used for the production of given commodities. How to produce, what technique is supposed to be used, because we need to figure out the most efficient way using less resources here. These are the two criteria that we need to figure out, and based on that you need to figure out the technique here. This problem arises because there are various techniques available for the production of commodities, such as for the production of wheat, which may be either more of labor and less of capital, or less of labor and more of capital. For example, if you want to produce wheat, you have two options: more of labor, less of capital. Less of capital, more of labor, or rather less of more of capital basically here, and less of labor. Either of it can be utilized here. That depends on the company, or that depends on the producer itself. With the help of both these techniques, we can produce equal amount of wheat. Such possibilities exist relating to the production of other commodities also. So, with the basis of what producer thinks, he can go ahead and produce equal amount of wheat based on any of the strategies that he wants to use. Now, for whom to produce is the third question. The main objective of producing a commodity is its consumption in the economy. However, even after employing all the resources of an economy, it is not possible to produce all the commodities which are required. Therefore, an economy has to decide for whom goods should be produced. This problem, or rather this problem, is a problem of distribution of produced goods and services. Therefore, what goods should be consumed and by whom depends on the national product. Now the next item is for whom goods should be produced. किसके लिए बनाना है? If the consumers are not available, what are you going to do with all these production that you're doing? If there are high consumptions outside, and if you don't have restrictions, or rather if you have restrictions on your exports, what are you going to produce it for? Because sending the goods abroad or sending it outside will cost you double. If you can produce certain goods which are very highly consumed in your own country, and that are also consumed in the outer side of the country, or rather other parts of the country, you can absolutely go ahead and produce those goods. Hence, for whom it is supposed to be produced is one of the major important problem of it. So with all these things, we have completed the three questions: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. This is, or rather these are the central problems of an economy. So this is all what we had to cover in it. Thank you.